Welcome to this video on how to configure the client for OES to use MFA with Advanced Authentication. My name's Robin Redgrave. I'm a solutions consultant based out of the UK. So first of all, what is OES? Well, essentially it's a file and print server, but it is a lot more than that. It's a solution that's based on Linux, a SLES distribution in this case. It uses eDirectory as its directory for users and indeed the store for other server-based and resource information. It's got an excellent file system. It's got capabilities in there, for instance, being able to make eDirectory behave like Active Directory, so much so that you can actually use Active Directory administration tools against it. We support clustering up to 32 nodes and indeed geo-clustering, so I could have a cluster of servers in London and a cluster of servers in New York, and should London go offline, then New York will take over without missing a beat, more or less. We have iPrint available, which gives you self-service printer driver installation. It gives you driverless printing, so I can just drag and drop a document onto a web page to print it out, for instance. And indeed walk-up printing, so we have many ways of releasing print jobs. For instance, I could just put my smart card down on a reader by the printer and my print job will come out there. We do storage tiering, so this may be to secondary storage or indeed to cloud S3 storage. So older data, rather than taking up expensive storage, we can migrate to cheaper storage. We can give access to Active Directory users to the file system. They don't have to be in eDirectory there. And we also ship with some entitlements, for instance, Identity Manager Bundle Edition, Self-Service Password Reset, and Filer Standard, which gives you remote access to your files and indeed secure sharing of those files. You can share them with internal colleagues or indeed with external partners. So to install this, we first need to extract the OES client install from on the workstation we're going to be installing this on. But we don't want to run the installation quite yet, because we need to copy the Windows Components directory from the Advanced Authentication client install and put that into the OES client installation directory. And then we want to edit the install.ini file to set some preset options as to whether we actually want to install Advanced Authentication and so on. Having done that, we run the installation. So let's just do that now. So here you can see my installation directory, and I've copied over this Windows Components directory from the Advanced Authentication client installation directory. Something I've also done is I've edited this install.ini file. Let's just show you the changes I've done there. So down here I have a section that I've said install Advanced Authentication, just set that to yes. I've said install the device services as well for Advanced Authentication, so I'd need those if I'm running, for instance, a card reader on the workstation. I've also put in a pointer to the Advanced Authentication server, and indeed I've specified we're going to be using an event. We haven't created it yet, of course, but called OES event. So let's just run the install. So here I'll accept that and accept the license agreement. I could do an express installation, but in this case I'll just do a custom installation so you can see the options that we've done. So first of all, you can see we've got some extra options down the bottom here for Advanced Authentication, and then here I've got the server pre-populated and the event name that we're going to be using. So I'll just click next and then install. We've also got that configured to auto reboot after it's done the installation, so we'll come back to this afterwards. Let's just have a look at the Advanced Authentication configuration. First of all, we need to create the chain, or indeed chains, that we're going to be using for the authentication method or methods that we're using. As far as methods are concerned, all of the authentication is done through Advanced Authentication. So unlike some other applications like Filer, where we pre-authenticate with the user and password, then ask advanced authentication for confirmation on that authentication. In this instance, everything is going to be done through advanced authentication, so you're most probably going to want to have the LDAP password in there, so they type in the password and then some other method of authentication as well. And we also obviously need to specify which users or groups are going to be using that. And then we need to create that OES event. That's just going to be a generic event, and add the chains to that we're going to be using. Let's just set that up. So if we add a new chain, I'll just call this OES SMS chain. And here we're going to use that LDAP password initially, and then do a SMS one-time password. And I have a group for the users that are going to be using that called AA SMS. And I'll just save that one. Then I'll add a new chain. Let's just call this OES smartphone chain. And this time around we're going to have that LDAP password and then a smartphone authentication. I have a group again for this with some other users in AA smartphone. I'll save that. Then let's set up the event that we want to configure. So let's just call this OES event, same event that we specified when installing the client. I'm going to use the SMS chain and the smartphone chain, so depending what group my users are in, it will be asked one or the other. Obviously if a user's in both, it will be prompted for both. I'm just going to save that. Let's just go back to the Windows client and try authenticating. Let's authenticate as me. First, I'm prompted for my eDirectory password, and now on my phone you'll see I get a prompt to authenticate. Just use Touch ID to come through, and I then can accept that authentication. You may have noticed on the previous screen I did have the option to input a one-time password there. So I get that one-time password from the app that's installed on my phone. You can see here I've got this number that changes, in this case every 30 seconds, that I can use as an OTP. Let's just log out and just show you another method of authentication. So this time I'll just authenticate as a user called A. Marsden. Again, you may remember we set up to ask the LDAP password, though this time around you'll notice that the user is prompted again for a bit of information, and on the phone I've just got that one-time password has been delivered. So I just need to type that in and that authenticates me. And there we are. Hopefully you've learned something looking at this video. Thank you for listening.